Ross Ulbricht at all?
No.
Oh, okay. Are you familiar with the Dread Pirate Roberts and the Silk Road? And that
I
trial?
don't watch too many movies. I'm usually doing research on the web, just trying to screw them, government.
Right, good. That's good. That's all I like to hear. Your focus is in the right place.
Yeah, that's why I've compiled all of the evidence that shows how they were collecting content of U.S. citizens' communications.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they actually have said it. I mean, Director Clapper said they're doing it.
Yeah.
So did Director Mueller.
Yeah.
And so did agents like Tim Clementi, he said it. And all the evidence, of course, which I put in my sworn affidavit for the court for Jewell versus NSA.
Mm-hmm.
This was before Snowden.
Right.
So the only reason to keep, because if you wanted all the metadata in the world for all the people and all the relationships in every domain,
right.
Banking and phone calls, emails, all that shit, you could put that in about the room, maybe twice the size of this.
Are you serious?
That's
with
right.
today's technology?
All of the indexing, yeah.
So imagine how big Utah's facility is.
Right.
I don't even know how big that
Well, it
place
must be
is.
like...
It's
probably-
100,000 square feet of storage.
I was just going to say it must be 1,000 times as big as this. Wow.
And that's what I said in there. I basically said that's for content, not for metadata. And I estimated the content to be about 5 zettabytes.
So giga, tera, where's zeta on that? Like,
It's terabyte, petabyte, exabyte, zettabyte, yottabyte.
wow.
So it's like 2 to the 21st.
We're going to have to come up with some new names soon. We're already at Zeta.
Yeah, the government's not going to have
Well,
any
now they're
number
building
classifications on
on Fort Meade. They're building a 2.8 million square foot facility.
it. Wow.
About three times the size of Utah.
Wow.
That's because it's
terrifying.
planning ahead, all right?
That's a good point, because...
the plan is they're going to be full at Utah in 5 years, so you have to have this facility built. The problem is, see, they have to file an environmental impact statement when they want to build.
Ooh.
Is that why some of these states have tried to shut down?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? It's because of the water usage or something
Water,
like that?
power, everything, yeah.
Which is a good avenue for trying to stop that, yeah.
Well, the federal government will overrule that, and they'll be forced to supply the energy. I mean, that's not the way to get around is unfund NSA and get your representatives in Congress and so on to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just unfund it. That way, when you take the money away, they can't do it.
Well, let me ask you this though, like, everyone kind of knows the CIA has like black budgets. Did the NSA ever have that kind of same situation where off the books kind of?
Yeah, what about
money
total
or-
information awareness was totally moved to a black budget?
Well, you see, the point is that NSA is not audited by the federal government,
Wow.
nor is CIA.
Yeah.
By law.
I figured that was true of the CIA.
That's by law.
It's by law. It's that
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Wow.
And that's got to change because that's a setup
sure.
for corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, what did
yeah.
you do with the money? None of your business. That's what they tell the federal government.
Yeah. Well, it's the
we
same
just
with.
gave you $10 billion. What did you do?
It's the same with the Fed. The
Right.
Fed is effectively not audited.
Right.
And I've even read where they say it's audited, but then you read the fine print. Audited except for these 3 areas that comprise like 95% of their operations.
Yeah.
It's,
That's right.
it's like...
Only that which we want you to see will we let you see. So therefore, that's called an informed direct electorate, right?
Yeah. Informed is maybe an overstatement, but yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, the same thing was true with Congress. That's why Representatives Amos and Conyers started that initiative to unfund NSA. They finally figured out they were being lied to by the intelligence committees, by the agencies involved, NSA and CIA and FBI,
Yeah.
and by the administration and the DOJ.
Wow.
So they started that initiative to unfund NSA. And so what happened was I was supposed to brief the group, the combined group,
Yeah.
before on the technology, what it meant, and what they were doing. And when that got posted on the congressional record, I was coming down the date and time that was going to happen. They have to post it every time they do it. Why Obama called a meeting of all the Democrats in the House at that time. So it stopped the meeting.
Wow.
So then they had the vote very shortly after that, and they lost by 12 votes.
Wow. So just like that. I mean, it's like...
That's how you manipulate the Congress.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think happened? Was this like a closed-door meeting between the Democrats
Yeah,
and
were
Congress?
they talking about anything, I guess?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what the issue was, but it certainly pulled them all out, and that canceled the briefing.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right. So,
Yeah.
So they weren't going to they were going to vote uninformed.
I see.
And that was their plan. This has been the plan from the beginning. Keep it secret. Keep the electorate uninformed. Keep Congress uninformed, so that you can manipulate them. Say we have to do this, so you have to vote for this. So they vote for it.
Well, and it's happened with other things, like whatever you think about, like Obamacare or net neutrality.
It's all the same.
It was the same thing. It was like Nancy Pelosi was like, we have to pass this bill so we can see what's in it. Net neutrality didn't even release the.
Well, you see, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, you remember her saying that impeaching George Bush is off the table?
Oh yeah.
You remember why she said that?
I forget.
She said that because she was one of the first 4 members of Congress briefed into all the programs, and she approved them.
Oh, okay.
So if she impeached or allowed the impeachment of George Bush, she'd turn around and say, you have to impeach yourself too, because you are part of this.
Yeah.
That's leverage. That's how you co-opt, and you get the leadership to co-opt in.
Yeah.
Then you have them.
And it's almost like sort of mutual blackmail in a way. It's like,
right.
if you try to pull anything on me, I'll pull something right back at you.
I got you. That's what J. Edgar Hoover did, right?
Yeah. I love this. This is awesome. Oh, do you want to start? Or
Yeah, I actually have started recording.
You already have started.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll get in on this, camera guy.
Good.
Well, I mean, this is this kind of discussion is what has to happen. I mean, people need to be informed about this because this is how they're being manipulated.
Yeah.
The people in the NSA, you worked for them for 32 years and then eventually defected when you found out spying was occurring on the American public.
I didn't change my position.
Right.
I was always supporting the Constitution and defending it.
Mm-hmm.
They changed theirs.
What about the morale or the psychology or the philosophy of the people that are working there now? Are more of them starting to become very uncomfortable with all of the illegal and immoral acts?
I'm sure the vast majority of people there at NSA are rather uncomfortable with what they're doing domestically, simply because the procedures that NSA is adopting is to internally threaten the workforce.
Mm.
They use the 60 Minutes program that we did back in May of 2011, and they broadcast it internally in NSA, saying, "See, this is what happens to you if you complain."
Wow.
And now they have a program saying, "See something, say something" within the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means that you're like the Stasi in East Germany, right? You can't. How can you trust somebody else you're working for? Because if you do something and they say something about you, you're in trouble and you get taken off and stuff like that, like in East Germany.
Yeah. So basically, it keeps everyone always constantly
they're all afraid
to not comply with.
Right. So anything they're told to do, they comply. Wow. So that's how you get a compliant workforce. That's how you get a compliant population.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what J. Edgar Hoover did, with the Congress and with the administrations, and he was the director of the FBI for 30 years.
Yeah.
So and he did that and stayed that way because he had something on everybody, or if he didn't, everybody thought he did.
Right, because you just never. You just never know if he's watching you or he's got dirt on you.
So if you had something that you didn't want exposed, right, you thought he knew, so therefore anything he wanted you to say or do, you would do.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. They try to leverage it. They don't necessarily have to be total control, although obviously that's where it's going with NSA surveillance. All they have to make you think is make you suspect that they're watching you.
Is there an official program in the NSA in order to essentially blackmail political rivals? I heard something about using the sexual habits of what people had looked up online in order to blackmail them?
They use that actively against people in positions in Middle Eastern governments.
Okay.
That's because they're very sensitive with that issue. Okay, so they use it against them, but they have the ability to find something about anybody in any parliament or administration anywhere in the world, because they're scooping up all of this data. They have amassed it all. So if they want to target somebody, they're not good at having programs or having a way of understanding what's happening across the board with everybody, or even focusing in on groups that are actively trying to do something, but they certainly have all the data amassed to target individuals, because then I know your attributes. I can go in and pull all your data and amass it and then manually look at it.
Yeah.
And figure out how to leverage you.
Yeah.
I mean that's fundamentally what they did with various people like Generals Petraeus and Allen, I believe, right? And also Elliot Spitzer. See, Elliot Spitzer. This was really he was going after the bankers for defrauding people with and that's why they had the financial crisis in 2008. He was going after them criminally because they were defrauding people with fraudulently advertising package deals for the mortgages and stuff. And they were always bidding, each bank would pass it along and these packages along, raising the price every time. So they were all making money, but they were defrauding everybody else that was investing in them, trying to, because every time
Just like Bernie
they buy-
Madoff. I
Right.
mean, like
Right,
he's
exactly.
just the tip of the iceberg, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
sure. So, I mean, this was trillions, right?
Yeah.
And people lost their shirts on this. A lot of people lost a lot.
And so with Spitzer, right, because they ended up connecting him, I think, to that
And how do you think they did
prostitution
that?
ring or whatever. Yeah.
Well, he got connected with the prostitute, yeah. But
Yeah.
how do you think they got to that? Where was the probable cause to do that investigation, right?
That's a good point.
And the other point is, where did they get all the emails and financial transactions? Well, I mean, NSA is accumulating all this stuff, and FBI can go into the NSA database, as they show in the Snowden released material, and look at whatever they want in terms of financial records, phone calls, emails, all of that, and look for something against him to get rid of him. And that's basically, in my opinion, exactly how they did it.
Yeah. Wow. And this is slightly off topic, and we won't delve too deep into this, but have you ever heard of the Franklin cover-up or Franklin scandal? Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, okay. It's just it's something I've been researching recently. It's quite an ambiguous situation, but it touches upon the idea of the NSA and other elements within the government basically using things like prostitution rings or
Well, that's the
sex
standard
blackmail
CIA
and
technique.
stuff.
Yeah, that's standard CIA.
Okay,
yeah.
so that just
Yeah.
jives right with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
TIA, is that total
Yeah,
information
that's
awareness?
not. Well, total information awareness was Admiral Poindexter
Uh-huh.
back in 2003, and he was basically thrown out to test the water for the program that already started in 2001 at NSA, which was total information awareness. That's what it's grown to, right? And that's what all the taps on the fiber lines are, to accumulate all the data of communications of every U.S. citizen. And my estimate is between 270 and 280 million U.S.
Yeah.
citizens.
And were you the one who, or someone said this in official, it might have been you, recently said that the United States government, through the NSA and other intelligence agencies, is basically tapping like over 80% of the internet of the world?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was me. That's my estimate, yeah.
That's so crazy.
Well, they've got over 80 to 100, somewhere between 80 and 100 taps inside the fiber lines within the lower 48 states of the United States.
Right.
And they're only authorized to spy on foreign people?
Not under Executive Order 12333, which is not, there's no oversight on Executive Order 12333. Only on the FISA 702 and also the Patriot Act. That's where the courts and the intelligence committees do oversight, supposed oversight.
Supposedly, yeah.
That's not really effective.
Yeah.
Under Executive Order 12333, there is no oversight. And the rule for 12333, Section 23C, which says, this is the one they're using to do all U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
If your intention is to try to find a drug dealer or some international crime or terrorist, that's what you're targeting, and you're going in, and you happen to come across communications of a U.S. Personnel, you can keep that as coincidental collection, right? So, but you're really after the terrorist in there. So if and this is the way this is the logic they use. I'm looking at a 10 gigabit pipe. That's 64 fibers, times 10 gigabits, and I'm after the dope dealer or terrorist that's in there. I know there's one somewhere. He's in there somewhere, but I'm going to take the whole damn pipe.
As an excuse, just because it's like
and
that's...
everything
okay.
that isn't this terrorist or dope dealer is coincidental collection. So I'm going to store it all, right, as coincidental collection, and I can let the FBI search it for anything they want.
So that's your justification.
That's your
is
justification
It's
for
bundled up physically or data-wise with this other stuff.
Oh, and I can't
therefore-
separate it. It's too difficult. Right?
No.
Which is probably nonsense
That's
anyway.
absolutely a lie.
Now, what is parallel reconstruction, and what kind of techniques are used in order to make that happen?
For example, this is part of the FBI and the SOD for the DEA looking into the dope dealers and crime
Right.
inside the U.S., inside the country, or around the world, really. But most of the collection is against U.S. citizens, so they're basically crimes being committed inside the United States. So the FBI goes into this database from NSA, and the direct lines are in some of the slides released from Snowden that show how they access it. And they go in looking for crimes, and when they find it, they then turn around and notify through the Special Operations Division of the DEA or through other departments in the FBI, special compartments looking at this data. They notify state and local police to arrest people. like the example that was published by Reuters in August of 2013, said the local police say they're just told to go to this parking lot, wait for a truck to pull in, and then go arrest the guy and then bring the drug dogs in and go find the drugs. So that's done from content, not metadata, right? Okay, that's the first key. People have to pay attention. You know, you can't be idle here and sleeping here. You got to pay attention to what they say because sometimes they give it away, and this was one of the cases.
I see.
And so all of that collection is coming across. They're using it in this way. So now that they've arrested the person, right? They've taken him to jail. They can't use the NSA data in court. It wasn't acquired with a warrant, so it's not admissible in the court. And if they tried to, it would be thrown out as under challenge, under discovery, and the procedures for discovery that would be thrown out. So then they would be left with no evidence, right? So what they do is they say, okay, local police and state police, you go here and see what data you can find, knowing where it is already.
Yeah.
It makes it easy. You go over here and look at it and pull together all the evidence to show probable cause to do the arrest. Then you go find that, and that's using standard techniques. And then you substitute that for the NSA data that you originally used to arrest them in the court of law.
Wow, and that's very scary.
And that's called, that's perjury.
Yeah.
Okay, that's perjury. So I call this thing, very simply put, I call it a planned program perjury policy run by the Department of Justice of the United States.
Wow.
And that's documented in the procedures of, they're not allowed to tell the courts, that means the judges, all these judges are being jerked around. They don't even know it. They're being manipulated and used.
I believe it, yeah.
And not just that, I mean, they manipulate and use the Congress, and some of the techniques we talked about in terms of voting the unfunding of NSA, that was only one case.
Yeah.
All right.
And this...
How did this pattern become legitimate? How did
it never did. It isn't now.
But
I mean,
it's like a sidestep. If I'm understanding you correctly, a friend was telling me about this, and you can actually read about this too. Like state police and then like the DEA, for instance, will collect illegal evidence basically on you. They'll surveil you, whatever, and it's not admissible in court, but they'll still use it to basically set up something where they can then use it in court against you. And so it's
even falsifying affidavits to make it happen.
Yeah,
which is what they did against us. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but we caught them at it. Okay. So,
good.
So they dropped us like a hot potato. So, but the point is that this doesn't really stop there. I mean, this procedure is being spread around the world. This parallel construction.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the federal agents in the Reuters article was commenting to the Reuters reporter. He said, "This is such a great program. I just hope we can keep it secret." I mean, you know.
So that's why it hasn't been totally attacked and destroyed, because more people don't know about it.
You remember, the whole objective here is to have an uninformed electorate and an uninformed Congress and also an uninformed court.
Yeah.
So the courts, nor the Congress, nor the people could understand what's happening or could challenge it.
Yeah.
That's been the lies and the deception that they've been pulling from the very beginning.
Well, and so when you say very beginning, like you say, a lot of this seems to have begun after 9/11, using it as an excuse.
But that's when they started implementing.
So they've been planning it since before then?
They planned it before that, yes.
Yeah.
The classic case, or the evidence of that, is Nacio, the CEO of Quest, in court records.
Oh, yeah.
That he was approached on the 27th of February of 2001 to turn over all of the data of his customers. So that means most of them U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
So the planning was to do spying on U.S. citizens even before 9/11.
Mm-hmm. That was big.
So, and since he said no, unless you produce a warrant signed by a judge, and they wouldn't, of course, because it's unconstitutional, no judge would sign it.
Yeah.
And so, what
They
they
took
did
him down.
basically was find some evidence on him or create it, and he said he was framed. I believe him. They tried to do it to us, and they put him in jail for 3 years or something like that. For stock manipulation or something is what they call it.
Yeah, he was a former successful multi-million-dollar CEO.
Wow.
Right.
So they can find anything.
Now the point was, very simply put, you're a CEO of a communications company, right?
Yeah.
Assume you're that. What message do you get from this? You cooperate or you go to jail. We'll do it some way.
Exactly, and that's why
Right.
people, I mean, not that the corporations who are complicit with the government don't deserve some blame, but people
Right.
don't understand that they're either legally ordered to, or that they're through...
I would take issue with the legally ordered. You cannot legally order an unconstitutional act.
That's true.
It,
Good point.
it appears
So-
to be legally ordered.
Now,
They're either
they claim it's legal.
Yeah.
but it's not legal. It's
Right.
just
That's what we're challenging with Jewell versus NSA. That's why I signed the affidavit supporting that, which is challenging the constitutionality of NSA or any other agency of the government collecting this data to begin with.
right.
Right. So that once that gets into the Supreme Court, if it's ruled unconstitutional, everything they've claimed, including retroactive immunity for the telecoms, falls as unconstitutional.
Hmm.
Because you can't pass a law that authorizes an unconstitutional act. That law is unconstitutional.
Right. It's null and void on its
Right, exactly.
face if it's
That's
if the
why they're
courts.
fighting like hell to keep Jewell versus NSA out of court. The one that got into court was Clapper, Amnesty International versus Clapper. In that case, the Solicitor General lied to the Supreme Court to get that thrown out. The issue of using NSA data to take it into court against people came up in that, and the Solicitor General told the Supreme Court that if anybody had that data used against them in a court of law, that the defendant would be told, so that they would have the constitutional right to defend or attack discovery, right, which is their right to do, of the evidence that was used against them in court. So, but they weren't given that right, and no one was, in fact. And so that was an outright lie, and so therefore that was the basis for the court throwing it out. I mean, that was assurance that the government was going to be honest and that they would be upright and tell a citizen that their rights were still, you know. And then we had Tom Drake, Kirk Wiebe, and I, and Kathleen McClellan from GAP had the chance to talk to the President's Civil Liberties Oversight Board, and we raised this issue with them. And they said, yes, we know that that was true in the past, but the administration has now assured us that from here on, anybody in the courts who were taken to court, and the evidence was from NSA, that they would be told that the evidence came from NSA. They had been assured from the administration.
So it's just all these assurances without
Right.
any.
And how many have you heard about that have been told? Well, Feinstein, in defending this program, these programs, she said, these are really valuable programs. We put hundreds of people in jail every year for this.
But
So where are those
basically-
people who've been told?
Yeah.
Bill, do you need any water? You want me to get you some water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, and so let me ask you, like, I know I read that, like, Echelon, which is sort of the Anglosphere intelligence sharing network between the United States, Canada, Britain, and stuff. What they would sometimes do to get around, for instance, laws against the CIA, for instance, operating within the country and spying on Americans, they would basically have the Canadians spy on Americans and submit that information.
That's
to
always
us.
possible.
Yeah. And so is that still ongoing? Are other countries sort of collaborating with U.S. on this sort of spy stuff? And
Yes, but to the extent of it, I don't know.
Oh,
So I
okay.
can't tell you. But yeah, that's always possible. I mean, they have a look down at everything. So,
yeah,
but they have a limited capacity. I mean, in terms of the digital explosion, that's happening on fiber networks because that's where capacity is.
yeah.
I mean, even if you're using cell phones, that eventually gets routed through the fiber networks.
Do you think in the future those fiber networks will become nationalized?
They already are. I mean, NSA owns them. What do you mean? You know, that's the whole point. They've got implants all over the switches and servers in the network worldwide.
Yeah.
So when they do that, I mean, that SIM card theft of the 2 billion SIM cards every year from that Dutch company, that tells you what they're doing. I mean, the SIM card allows them to implant things in your cell phone when you're walking around, or your computer when you're walking around with it. So now they can tell your computer or your cell phone to do whatever they want to with it. So if you think you turned it off, they can turn it on and listen to you. Or if you turn on your computer, they can have your computer download everything you've got on it while you're using it, using the unused CPU of your computer.
Wow.
So I mean, you can imagine what you can do. Give me your address book. Give me everything. You know, whatever you send, give it to me.
So
Give me your encryption if you're using a special one. Give me anything that you've got in your computer.
that is so scary, and people just don't understand that this is going on. And so, you know, obviously, like you've already talked about, we need congressional oversight. The American people need to know. Congress needs to know the courts.
Here's what we really need. We really need a technical group that is responsible to all the courts, not the FISA court.
Yeah.
That's an Article 2 court. That's not an Article 3
Yeah.
court. That reports only to the administration. So the important point is to have a technical group that will have the clearances and authorization to go everywhere and anywhere in the intelligence community, sit down at any desk, look at any data center or computer anywhere and look at the database they have, the data in it, all the programs they're using to interrogate it,
I
what the
see.
analysts are doing, and the people I suggested were the hackers, because they want to find problems. Okay,
Right.
well, they would, and you rotate them every 3 years so you don't get stuck with people who are you're going to get close and friendly with all people, then you lose your objectivity.
Right.
So you need to rotate them every 3 years and have them go in randomly and without any barriers. Otherwise, if there are barriers, you get rid of them. Have those barriers removed.
Right, because if there are barriers, that's
You're hiding
suspicious, and there
something,
should
right.
not be those barriers.
Exactly.
For that kind of
But
direct
that's a way of
oversight.
saying, for example, if they go to the court with a warrant for you, for example, and they
him.
say this is the justification for you, then they say here's the justification for the warrant. This group could go in and verify that that's correct and in the database.
Right, because otherwise it's just highly secretive and
Yeah,
there's
you
no
don't-
accountability whatsoever.
What is the court and what is the judge on the FISA court? If somebody from NSA or the FBI comes in and here's the evidence I have against this person, how can he challenge any of that data that they're presenting to him? He
Right.
can't.
He just has to take it at face value,
Did
basically.
you cross the T and dot the I and file
Yeah.
all the forms?
Yeah,
Right, that's all he can do.
yeah.
And even Reggie Walton, who was the senior judge on that court, after the Snowden material came out, he came out later and also in August 2013, I think it was, and said that, well, we have a limited capacity to oversee what they're really saying. And that's really true. Actually, I say a zero capacity to do oversight of it. Well, he has to take them at their word, and they're expecting them to be honest with them. They're lying through their teeth.
Yeah, that's a naive assumption to expect them to be
Right.
honest.
Exactly. You get no verification process whatsoever. Reagan said trust but verify. We got the trust but no verification. Okay.
Well, you can't do it with just half. That's
Reagan,
for sure.
Reagan also said that we are a country with a government. I'm saying now we're a government with a country.
Oh, well said.
Do
Well
you
said.
do you know anything about Wikipedia newly announcing that they're suing the NSA?
Well, I don't blame them. I mean, everybody should sue NSA. I mean, they're collecting all of
That's great.
everybody's
It's
data.
true.
It's a violation of their rights. Why shouldn't you sue them? That's why I'm supporting every lawsuit that comes up about it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And are other countries trying to combat this at all with their?
Yeah, the EU, everybody's afraid though of the United States. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they have the leverage, they have the power and all that, largest economy, largest military, all that stuff, So everybody's afraid, but the international law is, they're starting to wise up, and I said, you should sue the telecommunications companies in your country who have international connections and are also, because, for example, all these companies like Yahoo and Google and all that, they've got international connections, right? Well, they're giving their data away. That's a violation of EU law. They should sue them in EU courts, right?
Yeah.
You should do that.
In other jurisdictions,
Exactly.
try to.
In fact, there are, I don't know, 12 or 13 different tap points inside Texas. The state of Texas should sue
Yeah.
for that.
Well, and outside of the legal framework, do other countries? I mean, the U.S. has such like technologic hegemony, but you see things like mesh networks, of sort of independent internets and stuff like that coming up. Do other countries even have like a technologic chance to like block the spying or separate their own internet, so to speak,
Well,
from?
First they have to scan for hardware and software in every piece of equipment they've got.
Because it's literally that bad. Like,
Well, they in some of the slides that came out of Snowden originally, this is several years old, they talked about having over 50,000 implants in the worldwide network. But that's a low number because with all the SIM card theft, that must go up to millions.
wow.
So I mean,
Billions.
the whole idea was
Who
NSA
knows?
wanted to own the network.
This is chilling. Like I'm getting goosebumps. Like it's very
Yeah.
it's just terrifying.
But that's
Wow.
why I don't encrypt anything or anything. I want them to know everything I'm saying.
Well, and let me ask you that: is encryption safe? Because
No.
explain.
Bullrun is the program they use to subvert the encryption systems.
Like
You
any
can go-
encryption system,
Yeah, you
or
can go on all the publicly available ones. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Yeah.
you can go on the web and read about it.
Wow, I need to.
It was another program released from material from Snowden. So you read the classified slides. So it's undeniable by the government. This is their record of what they're doing.
Wow. Because even came out publicly the Heartbleed. The SSL encryption had the back door that it then was discovered the NSA was exploiting, and no one knew about it. Everyone thought that this internet encryption was safe, and it wasn't. And so you gotta ask yourself, like, what else isn't safe?
Well, let me
You
put
know.
it this way: every publicly used encryption system goes through NIST for testing.
No, I didn't know that. Really?
And when it goes through NIST, it goes to NSA immediately. They're a part
Oh
of the
my
testing
God.
evaluation.
Oh,
And
that's-
so therefore, they know the algorithm, everything. That's over half the battle. Now the only question is the key. If you remember a few years ago, there was a case where they released, where somebody put the NSA key in the system for an encryption system. They listed keys, then they put the NSA key there next to NSA next to it.
wow.
Well, they can also put an implant that says, I'm going to let you think you're using your key, but you're really using my key.
Whoa.
Okay, so now I get to read everything you've done.
Wow.
You can change your key all you want, but the software makes you use my key.
That's terrifying.
Uh,
Wow.
So I believed in, that's why I like the idea of transpositions of bits before submitting to encryption, public encryption, because then that's not controllable by NSA or anybody.
Well, and
Yeah,
let me.
you suggested communities of people could do
Yeah,
that.
if you have a community of people you're talking to or dealing with, and you want to secure your communications, a simple thing to do, and it was really not an encryption, but it's a bit transposition. You take however long a set of characters you want to read into a buffer. For Tor, they use 64 characters, 512 bits. So you read it into a buffer, and then do a bit transposition. Move bit 1 to 432, move bit 2 to 14, move bit 3 to 56, Do a bit transposition, call it a flip, and then at the other end you do a flop. This is before the online encryption. That then multiplies the problem by 512 factorial, which is
Wow.
something like, 1 followed by 1200 zeros.
That's, yeah.
And so if they, so on the other end, NSA is going to see the in-between. If they don't see the flip and flop, and they don't know the flip-flop patterns, they're going to have to go through all those pattern flops and flips to try to do assuming for every key assumption they have.
Wow.
If they're using their own key, they'll get scrambled output, so it won't be.
So we make it much, much harder, if not
It
impossible. for them.
defeats brute force. For example, brute force under trillions of keys they run through, to try to test an encryption, a decrypt, using different key assumptions, and it'll run through trillions a second or a minute or whatever, however frequency they want to do it. And they're looking for partial text to see if they're close to the key. Any under the bit transposition, any partial text they think they have is wrong.
Huh.
So that just leads them down the wrong path.
Yeah, it
Interesting.
would be cool to select bit transposition techniques that look for partial text.
That's what they'd have to do. They'd have to go through all the 512 factorial variations of it if you're doing 512.
Oh, okay.
That's what you have to do under every key assumption. So you can imagine trying to go through trillions of keys with 1 to the 1200 zero tests for each key assumption.
Wow. That'd be a lot of computing power.
That's what I mean.
Well, let me ask you about that. Quantum computing. I don't know much about it. They say that it's very unsophisticated at this point. That it's little more than a scientific lab experiment.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
They've been testing that for about 35 years.
That's what I figured.
Yeah,
Is
so-
that potentially something that could allow
Sure.
them to do something like
yeah,
that?
but there's a little bit of uncertainty with it. You're dealing with atoms and using atoms as bits, and
Yeah.
it's the uncertainty principle of finding the electron. Right?
Yeah.
So is it here? No, it's over there.
Yeah. The
So you have to do
position,
multiple
momentum.
parallel processing of the same thing to do a sum to try to see if you can get the aggregate to see what the real answer is out of the aggregate because of the random probability of finding the electron.
So are you saying that there are inherent physical constraints to even
Yeah, sure, it's a
theoretical?
complication. It's a complication, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
sure they'll get through it sometime or other. But even so, that means they'd have to go through, all those transpositions, 1 to the 1200 followed by 1200 zero transpositions for every key assumption.
But in theory, though, if they had a quantum computer that was sophisticated enough, it could at least reduce the amount of time.
Yeah,
that
it's
they could
probably
do it
less
in.
than 1,000 years, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's still a lot of time.
I mean,
Well-
certainly less. I mean, your lifetime's going to be less than 100 years, basically.
Well, I hope not.
So if you
No,
could say, oh, okay, even if it's a little over 100, less than 120. So
that
if you can-
works. I'll take
So
that.
if you can make the problem take them longer with a quantum computer than 120 years, you're in. You're safe.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're protecting secrets that go beyond your lifespan.
That's true. Well, I doubt I'll ever be doing that.
Yeah,
but
well.
probably the only people who do that would be the the government.
So at any rate,
Well,
that's,
yeah, no, that's interesting because that's actually something I've always wanted to ask someone with your knowledge is what would be the the practical possibility for them to do that
Yeah.
in order to bust tough encryptions.
Well, I mean, there are several. I mean, there are several ways to get through an encryption. One is the having manual errors in use of it. The other is to see certain built-in functional issues with the algorithm. That is, you can have a flaw in the design, or it can have. Basically, those are the two ways to get into encryptions rather quickly.
Well, what was the
and
first
other
one?
is to do
The first one?
brute force attack.
But
Well, I mean, the first one.
a manual of errors, you
Yeah,
said?
well, people using it use it erroneously. They fail.
Oh,
to,
manual errors.
Yeah, manual.
Oh, I see what you're
When
saying.
when you have people
Yeah,
implementing the encryption.
Right.
So if you have to whatever encryption you have to build the person out of it.
Yeah. And how common are those first two mistakes, or pretty common?
Some of them are very common. Yes.
Okay, so
So
sometimes they
it's
really
not-
just rely on
yeah.
human error in
Sure.
either
Yeah.
in implementing it or designing it in the first
yeah,
place.
but I can't talk about specifics.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, and let me ask you. I want to at least touch two more things. If what Bitcoin? Do you know much about it? And what,
I don't. Yeah, I don't know that much about Bitcoin. I haven't been involved with that. So
Okay.
I mean, I've been devoting my life to trying to get my government back on track with the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I've been researching everything I can find my hands on. Every time some new publication comes out from Snowden, I have to look at it to see if I can't, build on it to try to put together something that would help people understand what's really happening.
Okay.
Because a lot of people with all these different things happening, how many different program names? Well, don't look at program names. Look at functionality.
Yeah.
Follow everything by functionality. Then it gets a little clearer, right? And then you could put these programs all into the right functionality.
Yeah.
You have different names for companies participating in the same functionality, right? Like Prism, Upstream, and all that, and Oakstar, and all those other programs are companies participating, or Rampart A, or Winstop. The multiple parties around the world, second and third party countries, participating in feeding information. It's the same process. Functionally, it's the same process.
So you're basically saying it's sort of a diversion to call them.
It's a complication that they add to the problem, if for anybody to understand. They
to
basically do it.
obfuscate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of hides the issues from Congress, like how many different programs. Oh, this is an important one. Yeah, I got to do this one. This thing. Oh, here's another one. Don't tell them it does the same thing.
I see. That's so brilliant.
Add more money over here. Okay?
So they're not just smart
Yeah.
tech and cryptography
No.
guys. They're smart at marketing it and deceiving people about it.
Deceiving
That's-
people
yeah.
is the right answer.
Yeah.
What's the story du jour for the Congress?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So that's how you get money.
Well, and speaking of programs, and I didn't get a chance really to research it much, but so you talk about Trailblazer, which is a data collection program, if I recall that.
It was no program that ever produced anything.
Well, let me ask you that, because I remember you saying it was really expensive and didn't do anything. Was that because of sheer incompetence, or was it to cover something else that they were doing, either to funnel the money into something else?
Well, they
or,
later on they used that also for that,
Yeah.
but industry overtook them for a time. They started out with a $4 billion request to do it, and then it went from there after 9/11. So, but it never produced anything. What they were basically after was a sessionizer on the front end, which eventually became Narison's variant, with the Insight device for Naris that did the 10 gigabit lines, taking everything off the line.
Wait, start over. You said 4 billion requests. How did Trailblazer turn into Naris and something else?
Well, no, it didn't.
What?
I mean, they were overtaken by companies that produced
Okay,
devices.
okay.
Right? Their attempt was to do that in-house. Commercial industry came up quicker with the solution to that. So.
Well, and aren't they now also basically doing stuff out of house? Like, I know I've read that, for instance, the CIA has like NQTEL, where they're basically to utilizing
Yeah.
private industry.
Does the NSA have NQTEL? Do they have?
Yeah, do they have anything like that?
They've outsourced a lot of the functionality of NSA, like the entire communications network worldwide, all the computer networks worldwide, servers, all the computers on the desks of analysts and everything, as outsourced to contractors. That's why Snowden could see into everything. So he could look into every. He was a system administrator, super user, could go anywhere and look at anything.
Interesting.
So that's why they had no verification process or monitoring process on the network, so they didn't know who was doing what where. So they couldn't tell. That's why they don't know how much he took. That's why they're guessing.
I
1.7
see.
million things.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It allows them to sort of infiltrate private industry and utilize what they're doing But then
But
it also
they don't have any security or monitoring
but yeah, but
processes
then
on
it
themselves.
makes it because it's funny because Julian Assange, I remember, wrote a paper basically on well, conspiracy was the word he used, but he was basically talking about governmental systems like the NSA, where it's like the broader out they go to utilize, you know, for instance, like private actors, the more difficult it becomes to keep track of everything, and then you have leaks like Edward Snowden, and then
I think.
can I have one more question?
Yeah, okay, one more. I gotta
Thank
go.
you. So, 9/11. Why did they not see it coming?
Even at the time, they had too much data, and they were depending on manually all the analysts going through with their dictionary selects kind of terms, which is like a Google return.
Yeah.
So even then, when you do a Google select, you get tens of thousands, 50 to 100,000 items coming back every day on new material.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an analyst. What do you do with 50,000 items? How many can you get through in a day?
Right.
If you have to stop and write one report, that takes 2 or 3 hours to do. That takes about a third of your day to do one report on one item.
Right.
So how can you get through the other thousands that you have to look at? And they face that every day. That was why we did ThinThread, to eliminate that problem.
Well, and along these lines, have you ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer?
Yes.
And Able Danger.
I know.
Now, and obviously this isn't NSA. I think this
Yeah.
was DIA and FBI, but
Well, it's the military. Yeah.
or the military.
Right.
Yeah. What obviously they would suffer from the same problem that you just talked about. Like how do you do with all the information you have? But to the extent that like there was an effort to get some information up above, was it sheer incompetence? Was it simply interdepartmental lack of communication, or in his case, what do you think was preventing?
Well, it was probably a mixture of that. One is because what he was doing was kind of stepping on the toes of NSA and
see.
CIA. So that kind of
Turf war
Yeah,
stuff.
there's a turf war there. Yeah, competition.
Yeah,
Who has the real knowledge to tell the precedent? Who gets the prestige and the
That
credit
makes
for that?
sense.
Okay, but also, it also gets into sharing data, and that's one of the reasons that sharing is a bad point between these agencies, because then sharing is viewed as, well, once you give up the data, you no longer have control of it, and they know what you know, and you don't know what they know, and how can you trust them? And
that
stuff
makes
like that.
sense.
So
So it's very adversarial between these different agencies.
Yeah,
For just
yeah.
reasons of basic
And
human
also,
psychology. and
well, also the charter problem. When they step on each other's charter, they say, "This is not your space. This is mine.
oh, I see.
Stay over there."
In the same way, like an FBI might come to a local police district and like have battles over
Right.
jurisdiction or what
Right,
have you.
that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
I see.
Right,
Same
can-
thing.
Wow.
Let's do a conclusion. What would you say to a young security researcher or cryptography person who was going to go out into the world and look for jobs or things to do? Any advice for them?
Well, I mean, NSA is still, if you have character and integrity, NSA is still a good place to work. And the reason I say that is because I believe in infiltration. What they lack now is character and integrity. And having people with those values going into these government agencies will add that property to them.
Yeah.
And you have a chance of influencing things from the bottom up that way. Otherwise, you have to come from the top down legally or through Congress.
Yeah, which can be very difficult.
And we should do both, really.
Yeah. Multi-pronged attack.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome.
When we play this on the radio, last question, do you have anything to tell the people of Austin or the American public or anybody that's listening? What's your
Just
final
like
message?
I said on the Alex Jones Show, speak up, complain to your representatives and senators, make it clear to them that that this is not a tolerable thing. This is a violation of your constitutional rights, and they need to stop it. They need to live up to their oath of office, which is to protect and defend the Constitution. That's their oath of office.
Yeah.
And and do it publicly also. Don't do it do it with phone calls, Twitter, email, anything. And also do it publicly when they come to the to town meetings. Ask them right up front, what are you going to do to stop the spying on me so that the federal government respects my constitutional rights?
Well said. Yeah.
You have to say that to them. And do it in public where the sunlight's on them. Now what are they going to say?
Absolutely.
And if you don't do that, if you don't respect my constitutional rights, I'm going to vote to fire you.
Excellent. That's a great message. Awesome. Well, hopefully people will listen to you and they'll hear you on our show
Yeah.
and
Wherever else
take
I can say that.
action.
Otherwise, I would say we have a Fifth Amendment state's constitutional convention where we reconstruct the ways to elect people, and we do that with random selection every 2 years from the phone book.
Huh.
We could never do worse than we have now.
That's how the Greeks basically did it, I
Yes,
think, back
that's
in
right.
the ancient
old
world.
days.
Just
It
a
was
random
public service.
lottery, yeah.
Yeah, it's like public service, like
jury
jury
duty.
duty. Yeah,
That's a
same
good point.
thing.
Yeah, that's a great example,
Yeah, exactly.